I started this piece in December of 2024 in preparation for a group show at Corey Helford Gallery. The theme for the show is Dreamland Awaits. And after sitting with that title for a while, where I landed was the image of someone in a cheap motel room in the desert, avoiding going to sleep. This is the story I started to put together. She's kind of between lives, right on the verge of doing something out of character. And I wanted her to look like she'd just come to a moment of decision. She's not in the frame of mind to slip into the whirlpool of a dreaming mind. So that was the tone I was trying to get into with this painting. It's 2 a.m. zombie time. There's a 25-watt cheap ceramic lamp on one of those beechwood fiber nightstands. It's just a last-minute, edge-of-the-world rest stop where time kind of holds stationary so you can regroup. It's definitely raining, and I thought everything should be kind of bathed in a soft, artificial, late-night golden cast. The fabrics played a big part in this painting, and I wanted the pillows and the bedsheet to almost look like ocean waves, sort of surging behind her head like she's about to set sail. The color choice of sand and water for the bed was very deliberate. I wanted to capture the feeling of being up too many hours with a racing mind, in that space where the dreaming mind involuntarily starts creeping in. You know, her focus is getting smaller and smaller, so everything needs to fade out from that one lit match. And it's important to really make that flame come alive and lift off the panel, because that's where all her intention is harnessing. And it's central to part of the unspoken narrative. You know, she's sort of playing with matches in a way that suggests how close she is to doing something she knows is dangerous. For this painting, what I thought would be really interesting is to find her in that moment where she's just starting not to care anymore. When I'm working on a painting like this, you know, I try to consider all the details that are out of frame, because as an artist, you'll unconsciously suggest those things when you're building the image and setting the environmental flavor. Like, for example, I imagined the white noise of those AC generators, you know, and shadows of people sort of rolling across those thick polyester curtains, and the smell of bleached linen and chlorine. It's fun to imagine all the details when you're trying to capture a specific kind of atmosphere. Angles and crooked corners are something I use a lot, and I find them to be really effective tools for creating a kind of nervous tension. I've never been very interested in the kind of art that is purely photorealism. It's just not my taste. For me, it can be a little antiseptic. I mean, there's definitely an element of realism in my work, but I think I tend to lean closer to an artist like Parmigianino and that sort of 16th century Mannerist kind of art. I love improvising and being a little loose with proportion and perspective, instead of faithfully rendering something exactly as it is. Here I'm filling out the lamp and adding some reflective highlights. I'm punching up all the geometric shapes and angles, and I'm just about to add some years on that nightstand and give it some wear and tear. I wanted some teal and orange in the frame to offset all the yellow and add some cinematic color grading hues into the backdrop. There's a reason that you see orange and teal in practically every film these days. Being opposite each other on the color wheel, they do create a very appealing contrast when you put them together, and I think we see those particular colors in movies so much that we probably unconsciously associate them with visual storytelling at this point. So I'm starting to give some real depth to those items on the table. And I will be adding a few more items later on, but I just wanted to get these all situated and kind of blocked in before I really started putting more stuff on that table. Now I'm going in on the final layer of the face, and everything I've painted so far has been a setup so I can paint that face and shape it with all the stuff that I've been talking about. This is definitely my favorite part, because it has to incorporate those frictions without underlining them, so that all the features, like the set of her jaw and the slight tilt of her head and the subtle tension in how she's holding her mouth, all suggest her story. And of course, the gravity for all these things has to come from the eyes. I wanted to see memories in her eyes and to really register all these discordant feelings. So there's a lot of improvising going on with the face and hair, so I will need to go back in on the pillows and bed behind her to darken up the tonal values so she sinks into the image a bit more. Right now she looks a little superimposed, but that's part of it, the improvising process. You know, there's usually some back and forth. Now that I'm starting to feel that I've shaped the face the way that I want on it and the tonal values in that section are set. It's just a matter of working backwards from that and settling her into what I've painted so far. So when Beautiful Bazaar told me the theme was Dreamland Awaits, of course, the first images that ran through my head were whimsical sort of fantasy dreamscapes, but that's just not the mood I'm in right now, so I really leaned hard into the awaits part of this theme. In a second, you're going to see me start to work on the embroidery across the bust of her slip. And the difficult thing about all that detail was I was sort of making shapes that I thought would register to the viewer's eye, but then I had to mirror the same shapes from the right side over to the left side. So I took it about a half an inch at a time, and I'd paint a little embroidery patch on one side and then go over to the left side, flip it backwards, piece by piece, so I wouldn't get lost in a corn maze of shapes and doodles. It's a little like threading a needle for a couple days. This piece was done on a cradled wood panel in landscape, so editing it in vertical for this was a little tricky. I've tried to zoom in on the areas I'm working on to give you a closer look, but I will be posting the full landscape time lapse in 4K on my YouTube channel for anyone who'd like to see it on a larger screen. So I gave a few nods to the shining in this painting. I was trying to figure out the floor, and I decided to do something kind of reminiscent of a Kubrick carpet. Not the actual design from the movie, but I liked the idea of making it a labyrinth pattern. You know, it definitely suited the tone of the piece, and I also thought the floor should contrast all the angles and straight edges of the room. And I liked how it sort of made her resemble the women in Klimt paintings, you know, sort of swimming in those swirling gold mosaic shapes. Again, there's like a lost at sea motif. So later on, I added some discarded burnt matches on the nightstand, and I thought that really suggested someone who's trying to work up the courage to leave something behind. And a very important final detail was the reflection of the match in her eyes. That very subtle detail, I think, gives you a sense that her past is just about to go up in flames behind her. And the second she lights that last cigarette, she knows there's no going back. That was really interesting to me, you know, observing that particular intersection between hesitation and aggressively barreling forward. And then Dreamland.